I used to work at the National Archives civil service, and some Muslim guy came up to me. I've never spoken to this guy before. I think he maybe just saw me going back and forth in the corridors, and he stopped me one day, and I could tell that he was like really stressed out. And otherwise, you wouldn't just stop a stranger and start sharing like personal matters. But he stopped me and he said, "Can I have some of your time?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So it was lunch break, and he said, "I'm having a lot of problems at home, and I just don't know what to do." And I said, "What's going on?" And he said that I'm married. My wife is pregnant. I live in the same house with it's me, my wife, my mum, and my brother. And I get on with everyone, but now my wife and my mum aren't getting along. My brother and my wife are not getting along. My mum wants me to divorce my wife. I do not want to divorce my wife because obviously I love my wife, but also she's pregnant with my child. I don't want to leave my mum. It's got so bad that my wife called the police on my brother. I don't know what to do. What would you do in this case? And I said, brother, I wouldn't start from here.
Oh, oh my, subhanallah. What a dilemma, the poor guy. I mean,
Yes.
it's not just one problem, but it's like layer
No.
upon layer upon layer. So extended family also play a key element. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that the husband's family is bad or the mother's
Yeah.
or the wife, sorry. But the issue is that there can be tension. There can be tension because if you think about it, if you're bringing a new person into the house, a woman they've got their own way of doing things or their own family ways or whatever. You may or may not get on with them. They're not going to be your friend per se, but you
Yeah.
can actually build a relationship. But I think a lot of the times a husband is stuck because they can't assert their authority as a son with their mother or their father, perhaps, because at the end of the day they're still his senior. Then the wife is looking towards the husband saying, well, you need to kind of assert yourself.
Mhm.
If the brother is rude or for whatever reason, I mean, this whole thing about it's a non-mehram, there's lots of issues there. So you need to be able to actually, these are the sorts of things you might have talked about and said, look, I'm going to end up living with my mum and dad or my brother. How does that work out? What does that mean? Can we save up and pay a
Yes.
deposit? Does that mean that she would then, he doesn't want to leave her.
Yeah.
But remember that, your responsibility towards your wife is actually greater than your parent. She cannot demand that you divorce her.
Yeah.
Islamically, Sharia
Yeah.
wise, I'm not a scholar, but I'm just saying from what I've learned over the years. But you have a responsibility to your mum and your mum in terms of looking after her, etc. But you need to do what you need to do with your wife, isn't it? So that
Yeah.
situation, poor thing, where would he go?
No, that's kind of one of my amateur advice to him was to be just with everyone. Do not be um, do not be unfair on your wife because of what your mum said, and do not kind of forget your mum's rights because of the problems with your wife. Just and try and work things out, but be just to individual people in this scenario.
Alhamdulillah, that's a very, very good advice. But I think the issue is that practically, that's the thing is that practically, how then do you kind of salvage it? Because
Yeah.
the demands are very different. It's a beautiful, that's how it should be theoretically. But when it
Yeah.
comes to practicality, the woman might, the wife might just say, I'm leaving.
Yeah. And that's what I was suggesting to him. I was saying maybe you need to think about moving out from your mum's house, but not moving too far away. So maybe in the same kind of where you can kind of have your own separate space, but still be there for your mum and still be part of her life on a daily basis. Um,
Yeah, no, no, very good. Alhamdulillah. I think you gave him some really good advice because but that's the thing is that this is a professional person. Okay,
yeah.
he's not some bog standard whatever. He's a
Yeah.
professional person, but he could not find a place to go and seek help,
Yes, exactly. That was the sad thing.
and that's
Exactly.
really important. So a lot of people will, they want to find an Islamic solution because and a culturally Islamic solution because if you go to a Western person, they say, well, what do you want to do? This is they don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand the dynamics, the pressures that a parent can put upon a child,
Yeah.
or the how difficult it is to assert oneself. You don't want to be.
Yeah.
We're told that under your mother's feet lies heaven. So what do you do? Do you
Yes.
your mum and then divorce her? And then
Exactly.
it's a minefield.
Yeah.
So you would then need to go to somebody who has some understanding or who can get you that understanding. Do you
Yeah.
understand? So there's a lot that needs to be kind of unpacked.
Very true. Also, I'm just wondering. So every situation is different, and every the advice you would have to offer would be different. But generally speaking, if a family member, if someone came to you, um, not on a professional basis, even just as a on a kind of human basis, and said that they're having problems in their marriage because of X, Y, or Z, like because of these kind of tensions, in-laws and family. Maybe a lot of times, I feel a lot of times couples on their own can get on with each other a lot better, but it's all of the stress that is put on by the extended family can get overwhelming. So, what would you advise to people in that kind of business?
Okay. So let me just say one thing. When even in my own family, I often say to people, "Don't come to me with your issues because I have some emotional attachment." But what I do
Hmm.
say to people is that you can never sort anything out when you're angry. So you have to both of you calm down,
That's very good.
and then basically either pick a time and actually or go out and say, look, these are the things that make it about you. Make it about you and say, look, I'm finding this very difficult a situation, or when you do this, this is how I feel. I need some help on this or support on this. Because the thing is, if you don't accuse somebody, if you don't get angry and say, oh, it's your fault, it's because of you, and blah, 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 then the other person is going to get very, upset
Defensive.
or angry because they're going to get defensive. So you make it about you. You say, look, I'm finding this difficult. I thought I could deal with it, but I can't. Whatever the situation is,
Hmm.
and then listen to the other person. Really listen, and then allow the other person to say their bit and say, look, how do we solve this? How do we move forward? We are committed to each other. Remind each other that you are committed to each other, that you love each other, you respect each other. Because one of the biggest things that is a problem is when you don't respect each other. When that
Yes.
respect goes, everything else falls apart.
Yeah, it's true. And I think the listening part is so true as well. Sometimes I can see couples are having a conversation, but they're not listening to each other. They're waiting for the other person to finish their sentence so that I can say what I need to say.
Because the thing is, it's coming from a place of you're still angry or you're upset.
Hmm.
Yeah. Or you're not going to talk. You're just like, no, don't talk to me.
Yeah. Do we
Something
have
like
like do we have statistics, at least in this country, of like divorce rates in the Muslim community compared to the larger community, or is there anything like
I
that?
think, well, I think we're catching up. I'll tell you one thing though. I've dealt with over nearly now 100 cases, and the majority of them are women. So over 90 of them are women. They're asking for khula. They're asking for
Wow, I would not have imagined that. I would have
it's
imagined it to
really
be
low.
like
It's
even.
very few men. One of the things that I've seen, and I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, men seem to just carry on with the situation, as in like it's really bad, but they'll just carry on. They won't divorce them.
Hmm,
Yeah. But women, like I said to you before, there comes to a point and they're like,
that's a breaking
that's
point.
it's breaking point. I've waited. The kids are now older, and now I can leave him.
That's
And
another thing. Before I started speaking with you, I thought once you've had like, once you're married for 15, 20 years or whatever, then you're pretty much in safe zone. You're all right. Now you've
don't
learned to
make
understand
assumptions
it.
of him.
Oh, no.
So you've got to,
Oh, dear.
you've got, because the thing
I thought I could relax now.
that could be a danger zone. We can't make assumptions because we're thinking, okay, we've done all the growing up, they've gone to
Yeah,
university.
put my feet
Then,
up.
then there's that gap. Then there's that kind of emptiness.
Hmm.
All that time you've been filled with doing this, doing that, and then the house is full. But then, how is your relationship been? I'm not talking about you personally, but then,
Hmm.
in a marriage, what's the
Hmm.
relationship been like? If it's been about, raising a family, but not raising the level of your marriage, yeah,
Yeah.
and then so then, 'cause this is the thing. People are always looking for the next hit. as in what's going to make me feel good. I need to fulfill something. I need to feel good. And so if you're not getting that necessarily in your relationship, you might be thinking, I need to get away from this person. They're not
Yeah.
fulfilling my needs. Yeah, whatever those needs are. But they're doing that in their mind. Yeah, and the
Hmm.
story gets bigger and bigger, and then it overtakes you, and you begin to believe. I've worked with a lot of people who are about to leave their husband, or mostly the women, and then the work that I've done, alhamdulillah, they've decided to stay because they've realized it's not necessarily the husband's fault, and these are not cases of violence or anything like that. These are just
Yeah.
cases where people have misunderstandings, gross misunderstanding. And when you begin to realize actually you're not fulfilled in some area, but again, your husband can't fulfill you. And that's when, we have to go deeper into who is Allah. And Allah is the one who will give you that peace. But I'm not saying, you have to do 100 rak'ah of salah. It's not that. It's a
Hmm.
different way of understanding
Yeah.
what world you're in, who you are, who Allah is, and what we're going to look forward to in our life. So you have to make your life different, exciting through all the stages of a marriage.
Yes. Our metaphysical reality needs to change sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's for you as a person because we come together but we're individuals. We're not
Yeah.
we're not this kind of like, duo going around. We have our own thinking, our own way of being. We come together and then with you could be sitting together, husband and wife, are in two different realities.
Hmm.
Completely
Exactly.
different realities.
Tell me, in your experience, how do you think things have changed from our past generations to now? And so we didn't have so many divorces then. We do have them now. But surely we had problems then and we have problems now. So is it the case that our early generation maybe at those cases when they shouldn't have stayed together that long, or is it the case now that we're kind of getting it wrong and we should actually stick it through and try and resolve our problems
It,
without
it,
giving up so easily?
it's an interesting thing that, and I look back at my parents' marriage and the relatives that we had, and I think there were some situations because the power imbalance between men and women in those days were very different.
Yes,
Yeah, so that's one of the things I think that may have prevented women from leaving because financially they wouldn't have
they
that.
couldn't.
In terms of society, it would be seen as this is wrong, you can't do that. Whatever happens, even if a man hits you, you were told, just
Yeah,
bear it. Allah will give you something different. They didn't
yeah.
understand. There wasn't that understanding of this is not suitable. But even if you don't look at things like violence or whatever, but there was a lot of control financially. How are you going to cope? What's going to
Mhm.
happen? So there were some of those things, and some people it might have been beneficial for them not to be together, but they stayed for the sake of their children, etc. So those things, and then also, but I think there was something about tolerance. There was something about look, it's not going to be perfect. You had a lot more people. Think about it. Most of us here have come from abroad. We're not indigenous
Yeah.
white people. So, sometimes we have extended family, sometimes we don't.
Mhm.
So with extended family, you can sometimes buffer the difficulties.
True.
Yeah. There are other people. I remember one particular woman, she's in her 50s now. She said to me, she goes, I only stayed with him because my in-laws were so good. Yeah, my
That's
in-laws.
another question I was going to ask you. Do you think there's more problems where there is extended family or where there isn't extended family?
That again, it really depends. I mean, there are some extended families who are amazing. I know one young
Mm.
woman, she's got, she lives with her in laws. She loves it. She said, she goes, if she wasn't with her in laws, she'd have so much difficulty raising her children. There are other people who are like, if I left today, it would be, it's not soon enough.
This is
They
so
find,
interesting because, like, a lot of the things that you're saying is changing the concept that I had in my mind before we started. So, like, you're saying these problems they exist in all education levels,
oh,
professional
absolutely.
background, how long you've been married, whether you're living with extended family or not, whether it's an arranged marriage or whether it's so.
Marriage,
I
yeah, yeah,
I love statistics, and I think maybe I would encourage
I
you
think some
to
research needs to
just,
be done. I think
yeah.
there hasn't been a lot of that done. There's been a lot done around domestic violence or this, that, the
Mm,
other, but I might actually raise that with the Sharia Council because I think there's a lot of information there
yeah,
over the decades of the work they've done. Because, but
that would be so useful.
ultimately, yeah, but ultimately, I mean, like I said, I've dealt with nearly 100 cases, and the
Mhm.
majority of them are khula cases, and on every level of society, from people that have been housewives, people that are professional, people that have been married, they've divorced within a year. They've divorced after 25 years.